you on the politics of Delta State shortly, before I allow my other guests to weigh in on the elections generally in 2013. What's your take on the present development in Delta State?
Well, I think most people now know that I'm an aspirant for governorship in Delta State in 2015. Yes.
On what platform?
For now, within PDP, main PDP, I will say. I don't know what will happen. I don't know what will happen.
You have an ambition.
I have an ambition to be governor of Delta State in 2015. That's quite well known to most people now. Now, Delta itself, if you look at the last two governors that we've had, we had Governor Ibori, who was Delta Central. We now have Governor Dwyer, who is Delta South. We now think within the unofficial zoning, as it were, within PDP, that is now the turn of Delta North, or the Anyoma people, to become to produce the next governor of Delta State. And you can see that most of the aspirants who are now planning to run for the governorship in Delta State are from the Anyoma part of the country, which is of the state rather, which is Delta North. And I think that's the right thing to do. We had a very first premier in the old Midwest from 1963 to the beginning of the military rule. We have not been part of the political process, i.e. the Delta North people and Anyoma people, for quite some time. And this is something that we've been crying for. It is fair and reasonable that somebody from Delta North becomes the next governor of Delta State. That is my own fair and honest opinion on that.
All right, interesting indeed, and it's interesting that we know that you have an ambition now.
Yes.
A professor of medicine, for that matter.
Yes, well, I think we are,
it appears that medical doctors have flair for politics.
Well, maybe, if you like. There's nothing wrong with that. We are fellow Nigerians. We can participate in the political process. There's nothing preventing us. What about lawyers? There are so many lawyers.
You have diagnosis of the Nigerian problem.
I have made a diagnosis, and I'm prepared to cure it. That is the main advantage of having me as the next governor.
Away from Delta politics, let me ask you about the conduct of elections generally. It's indeed very interesting that INEC can come out to say we were compromised in an election. What are your thoughts about INEC's activities and its
Before now, I know that the Independent National Electoral Commission is not prepared to give Nigeria what you could call a sound, credible election. If you have paid a visit to INEC office in Abuja and see some of the things that goes on there, you will quite agree with me. Jega may have been a wonderful man, but he's working with Nigerians. And as long as he's working with Nigerians, I don't know what he's going to use to turn them around. Because if you're running a small business of 3 men, the moment your eyes is off on them, you'll be surprised what the 3 men will perform.
So essentially, what do you think is a major problem, and how can we tackle it ahead of 2015? It's a big year. Even the coming year, 2014, we have a few elections.
Well, let them appoint me chairman.
Interesting. and we should ask Professor Jega to leave.
I don't think he has what it takes, because first of all he needs to understand politicians, and the reason why we have a wonderful election in 2011 was because there's something new. Something new, the registration exercise and the voting patterns and all, something new. But the moment you allow politicians to take a look at your database, your work list, and if you don't update it from time to time, you have to go back to basics.
All right. Dr. Isuala, what are your thoughts on the conduct of elections generally in the year 2013?
Well, I think we're likely to be retrogressive, like some of my colleagues have insinuated quite correctly, because what happened in 2011 appears to have been infiltrated by fifth columnists that we don't see.
That's good.
And I tell people, I'm a student of political behavior. My interest in politics, in political science, is to study why people behave towards politics the way they really behave. Shortly before this program started, I was watching a piece on this television. And I saw a governor visit a community in his state. And you saw women, young ladies, 13, 14, 15, 16, lined up on the road like slaves. And they were dancing and clapping to welcome governor. I bet you, those young people and the elders who were there were doing those things because somebody somewhere gave them 500 naira or 1,000 naira. And I ask you, if these are the people who are going to vote tomorrow, how are you sure that they are coming to the ballot box? Not because somebody has given them 3,000 or 2,000. That aspect of the election, nobody is talking about it. So what you see in this country so far, what you have seen so far, is free and fair voting. It is technically and fundamentally different from free and fair election. Election is like production. It is not complete until the goods get to the consumer. You know? So if you have a situation in which you don't do background check, you don't know who you are electing, INEC goes somewhere to accredit somebody to partake in election, and the person comes up, and what he gives us is this mess that you are. That election to me is not fair and fair.
Right.
The voting was fair and fair,
Right.
but the election was not fair and fair.
Right.
So it is high time
Okay.
INEC began to look at, and it has started now, kudos to Jega,
Right.
how to go beyond just casting the rituals of voting.
Right.
Who gets to power?
I want us to quickly do this before we go. I don't know what kind of magic we can perform, but then we got to do these. Last week, Dr. Doyin Okupe came to say that he talked about the assessment of President Goodluck Jonathan's performance in the year 2013 based on the scorecard, the 7-point agenda that the president set out to achieve in his time as president of Nigeria. And he says that if he were to grade President Jonathan, he would give him between 60 and 65%, which means that he rated him or graded him very good. Well, I will ask my guest here to, in a statement, in 1 second each, to assess President Goodluck Jonathan based on his performance this year, because we have reached the home stretch of the program. Just one after the other, please. Prof, I want to start with you. Based on what we've seen so far, and based on what you saw President Jonathan did on the 1st of January this year and his performance so far, how would you say he has fared?
I'll probably have to split it into two halves for the year. I'll say first half, i.e. January to June, I'll probably score him around 70%. I was quite happy with the announcement that there's now time for national dialogue. That was a form of coup from my point of view. For Jonathan. Nobody saw that coming. I'll probably give him a high score for that. The second half hasn't been very good, almost like a football match. It has been full of problems for him, from the chairman of the central bank, head of the central bank rather, and the head of the House of Representatives, and now Professor Obasanjo's 18-page letter.
Right,
so I'll score him for that second half, maybe about 50, 60%.
Chief Udoka is taking some seconds of you. How would you rate him?
60%.
60% indeed. That's interesting. Dr. Iswala.
Well, it's going to be difficult for me to do that. When people have already...
Nigerians want to know what your thoughts are.
Well, 65%.
65%.
And that is based on the fact that I see him as somebody who wants to really tackle problems from the road. And we have not been used to that in Nigerian politics. We have been used to somebody who just come window dress issues.
So the consensus of opinion is that he's done reasonably well.
It is unreasonable. Well, that's quite interesting. Well, we wouldn't be able to go into the Obasanjo letters. We did that last week. But these thoughts are on your mind. You can keep the comments coming. It's been an interesting time here on Politics Today. This last edition of Politics Today for the year 2013. Professor Ezeibu has been here with me, Chief Udoka and Dr. Aisuala. They've been my guests on the program tonight. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Until next year, when it's actually going to be next week, but next year, when we come your way again, my name is Sheung Okimbale, compliment of the season, and have a wonderful night rest.
Life has just got easier. You stay connected to Channels TV, where news and innovations are shaping our world. Simply log on to channelstv.com to get the breaking news. Browse the homepage according to what matters to you. Tap on the extended coverage of business,